Night and day this week between Greenwich and Coapexpan while Europe slept in preparation for Barcelona. Horse Bytes is presented by Flair Equine Nasal Strips. Welcome to Horse Bytes, your go-to source for keeping up with the show jumping world. It was a big week of five-star show jumping in North America with over $700,000 worth of prize money on offer between Coapexpan and Greenwich. That being said, the field strength was quite mixed in both places. Coapexpan saw only 28 starters, with half of them being from Mexico. But with world number one in attendance, the other half of the field was actually quite strong. We saw the obviously stronger pairs rise to the top, with Richard Howley taking the win on his super 9-year-old Zodiac. And over in Greenwich, Saudi Arabia's Abdulrahman Alrajhi and his wonderful Olympic mount Ventago saw their first 5-star win in the much stronger field against 46 starters. To be honest, however, it almost seems like it's time to make 6-star show jumping, because if this is what we're calling top sport, I'm not sure it's really appropriate, especially when you compare to Barcelona, which is coming up this week with a majority field of the strongest riders in the world going to be in attendance. Ken Farrington's event in Greenwich and Antonio Shadrawi's in Coapexpan were both beautiful events, and it's nice to see show jumping in North America offering huge prize money, but with relatively weak start lists, the 5-star level does seem to be diluted. You can see, however, that chasing those valuable points and prize money didn't stop a few Europeans from making the trip across the pond. Greenwich saw the 5th leg of the Major League Tour with a first-time win for Maccabi United in the team class and a career first for Alrajhi in the 5-star Grand Prix. Vanessa Hood's super-fast jump-off round beating out McLean Ward helped seal the deal for Maccabi United. The Roadrunners maintained the series lead, however, after finishing second, while Northern Lights' Ali Ramsey's shock off-course round relegated them to 3rd place.
Gets a dodge distance into the Lamborghini vertical, and now an error of course. Oh no.
But it was the Grand Prix that brought the biggest action. What seemed like a bit of a sleepy class to start rapidly changed pace as the final section of the order made some major errors. With 46 starters, a generous time allowed of 77 seconds, Alan Wade's course set a challenging track for the riders that saw 10 make it through to the jump-off. The triple was super tight, and the final line proved to be very difficult, with the Rolex double catching out more than a few, including Katie Dianen, Mimi Gotchman, and Margie Goldstein-Engel, who all had super rounds despite the late faults at 12B. The final jump saw heartbreak for Shane Sweetnam and Ashley Bond as well. But the biggest shocks came when Amy Miller's seasoned horse Cristiano stuttered in the triple, as well as Carl Cook's Olympic superstar Caracal, who perhaps were the favorites coming into the class, tried to do one in the 2-stride and crashed through C of the triple. Not Carl's fault, in my opinion, just a miscalculation from the mare, who has a huge stride and didn't make the adjustment for the short 2. Interestingly, Carl had jumped clear in the qualifier and elected not to jump off, saving the mare for this Grand Prix. So it goes to show that that strategy doesn't always pay off. And after winning the qualifier, McLean Ward also had a rough round with High Star Hero and retired, as well as Niall Nasser and Ivory TCS. It was the great final round in the jump-off that sealed the deal for Saudi's Abdulrahman Alrajhi and Ventago, as they never let off the gas, leaving a stride out to the last that had eluded much of the other jump-off contenders. Derek Kenny had the fastest time of the day, but with the penultimate fence down, he finished in 6th. Lily Keenan almost picked up her 4th MLSJ 5-star win, but missed out by 0.4 of a second when her horse stumbled on the landing before the last, and she was forced to do the ad down the final line. Ken Farrington rounded out the podium with a conservative jump-off round, but with the youngest horse on the podium at 9 years old and already their second 5-star podium together, I'm sure he wasn't too disappointed. And anyway, he's been on a good run recently, so his overall form is looking super strong. Times in the jump-off were pretty close, but the most shocking moment was when Philip McGuane's Edgar had a hard fault at the yellow oxer and refused to jump the vertical after it on the rollback. Overall, a good class. Give it a 7 out of 10 for exciting show jumping. Worth the watch, and happy for Alrajhi with a career highlight.
As riders, we're always looking for marginal gains, so like every little bit can help. You guys ever seen those little stickers on the horse's noses that look like Band-Aids? Well, they're not actually Band-Aids. They're Flair nasal strips. and they really help make breathing easier for the horse.
You can think of a horse as a giant bellows, pulling air into and out of its lungs with each stride.
Because horses are obligate nasal breathers, meaning they cannot breathe through their mouth. They can only breathe through their nose, unlike us. So anything that can help widen the nasal passages helps them breathe easier. And especially with Flair nasal strips, the more that they need to inhale, the longer the strides they take, the deeper the breaths, even the more stamina they need to maintain. And clinical studies have shown that horses breathe easier because they can take in the maximum amount of air with less work. Horses can work harder for longer, much easier when they use Flair nasal strips.
Mexico's Coapexpan offered $339,500 in prize money for only a 28-rider start list. Most notable, however, was the really soggy and slippery ground that caused quite a bit of problems throughout the course. It was also a really long course with a time allowed of 85 seconds, which saw quite a few faults in the latter stages, especially at the penultimate and the final fences. 5 horse rider combinations retired and 1 was eliminated. The early white skinny at number 3, the triple, and the open water all posed big questions, where the relatively weak field all struggled. Half of the class was represented by the home nation, with a few father-son duos in action, although they didn't have much luck with either high fault rounds or voluntarily withdrawals. As expected, the most seasoned of the bunch rose to the top, with 5 making it into the jump-off. We saw 3 Olympians beaten out by Ireland's Richard Howley and the rising 9-year-old star Zodiac du Buisson Zed. Daniel Deusser had the best rounds, in my opinion, putting on a masterclass of riding the challenging gangster around the very long courses. Yannicka Sprunger finished in 3rd with beautiful solid rounds, while Federico Fernandez actually had the fastest time of the day, but had the Liverpool vertical down after he was kind of late to steady and bring Romeo back for the delicate jump. Carlos Hancarero was the most cautious of the bunch, as you could see him really thinking about the slippery grass footing and taking a more conservative approach to the jump-off track. The few notables missing from the jump-off were Christian Allman and Sergio Alvarez Moya, who each had 2 down on the course, as well as Brazil's Eduardo Meneses, who made a rider error over adjusting after the water and having the plank down. You could see him shake his head. World number 1 Henrik von Eckermann also had a rough day, retiring after his new mount, Minuteman, had an early fence at the white skinny. The hero of the day for me, however, was the young 23-year-old Martina Franco Stefan, who was really putting in a scrappy ride on Claire until things went awry. They had trouble at the waterline, and eventually the mare got a little bit too backed off, and Martina elected to retire, but the effort from the young Mexican was something to be commended. Overall, it was a less than stellar showing of 5-star sport, and I'd give the class a 4 out of 10, especially since the ground was a bit dangerous and overall field strength was weak. It was a good day for the final riders, as both Alrajhi and Howley were last to go in the jump-offs, with both taking the wins. Often that pole position really does matter. But let's take a look ahead to this week, as the LLN final in Barcelona is shaping up to be a battle of the titans. With the British Olympic champions noticeably absent after not qualifying, will Germany triumph again, or will we possibly see a home win for Spain? Horse Bytes will be in Barcelona for the final, so make sure to check out our live coverage of the event all weekend long, and may the best team prevail. Well, that's a wrap on this week's top highlights, and stay tuned next week for the final showdown in team show jumping in Barcelona at the Longines League of Nations. Stay tuned to all of our socials. Make sure to subscribe and follow along all the action as it unfolds here on Horse Bytes, your go-to source for keeping up with the show jumping world.